We call to the stand Simon, also called Peter. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please take the stand. You are one of the inner circles of Jesus' disciples, are you not?
Suppose you could say that. Yes. Although there were many followers of Jesus who were referred to as disciples, and our numbers are growing all the time as he traveled, preached, and healed. Still, I was one of the 12.
And more than that, weren't you, along with Zebedee's brothers, John, and who we've already interrogated here, and James?
A member of the inner circle. Yes, some would have called us that. The three of us were invited to certain very special events and privy to some of Jesus' more private conversations.
And while it was John who was referred to as the beloved disciple, Jesus had given you a special nickname of your own, didn't he?
I'm not sure the term nickname describes it. It's more of a renaming. My name was Simon, Simon, son of Jonah, a common fisherman from Capernaum on Galilee. One morning as my brother Andrew and I were catching fish in our net, Jesus called for us to follow. I will make you fish for people, he said. And indeed he has.
Thank you very much. But we have already heard testimony of such call from the fellow of apostle named Matthew.
Sorry, but you'd asked me about my renaming. As I'd said, I'd always been Simon. Then one day, when we were in Galilee, near Caesarea Philippi, I recall.
We?
The 12 of us. And Jesus, of course. While he was teaching us, Jesus asked us what people were saying about him. Specifically, who do people say that I am?
Now, this sounds pertinent to the case. After all, we are trying to get to the bottom of who Jesus was ourselves.
Well, we told him the rumors we'd heard circulating through the gathering crowd.
Rumors?
Yes, that Jesus was a prophet, or John the Baptist returned from the grave, Elijah, Jeremiah, that sort of thing. But then he turned the tables on us. He was good at that. He said, who do you say that I am?
And who did you say that he was? I mean, did anyone reply?
I jumped right in. I had a reputation for doing that. Always a bit impetuous, me. I was the type to engage my mouth before engaging his brain. You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God, I shouted.
Now, we knew that this witness would be biased. Please disregard his conclusions.
To be honest, I don't even know where what I'd said come from.
So you didn't even really believe that Jesus was the Son of God?
Oh, I absolutely did. But the words seemed to fly out of me, independent of myself. Jesus confirmed that. Flesh and blood have not given this truth to you, but my Father in heaven. And that's when he renamed me. You will no longer be Simon, Jesus said. You are Peter.
Why Peter?
It's a play on words. Petros means rock. Jesus went on to say, on this rock, this Petros, I will build my church. He was affirming my faith made evident in my faithful declaration, a faith that would form the foundation of his church for all believers.
Well, Rocky, it appears that you certainly were on the inside track of this Messiah of yours. So when you were invited to this ad hoc upper level meeting on the day before Jesus' execution, that gathering was, in essence, a tribunal of what we could maybe fairly call Jesus' generals.
It was hardly that. The opposite, in fact. This was no upper level meeting, although it did take place in an upper room. No, this was a celebration, a feast, a gathering. Jesus had arranged that we, the 13 of us, should celebrate the Passover together. Now, normally a family would celebrate this special ancient meal, but Jesus had told us that he had longed to share this meal with us. That's the term he used. He longed to celebrate this with us. And as your assertion that we were a gathering of generals, well, nothing could be further from the truth. We were his followers, his disciples, his students. And he was our teacher. We were not his advisors, as you implied, nor were we henchmen nor commanders. Ours was a relationship of subservience and learning. Up until that night, that is.
Aha! Now, I was informed that Jesus turned some tables that night, so to speak.
Oh, that he did indeed. Things became curious enough early. Shortly after we gathered together, Jesus did the strangest, most unorthodox, most uncalled for thing. He stood up and wrapped a large towel around his waist. It reminded me of when he used to wear his carpenter's apron. He took a large basin of water, and he took a servant's roll. He began washing our feet, filthy with the dust of Jerusalem's dusty streets. This was the job of a low-level servant, not the respected rabbi among us.
That seems downright objectionable.
And I did object. Me, always engaging my mouth before my mind. Lord, are you going to wash my feet? You'll never wash my feet, I shouted.
Finally! Someone was talking sense into that senseless Jesus.
But don't you see, I was wrong. And as he had done so many times before, Jesus rebuked me. Unless I wash you, you have no share with me, he said. Then wash me clean, my whole body, I responded, once again missing the point. No, you are clean, he said.
The leader, taking the servant's role in front of his students, his underlings. Now, that's more than odd. He's turning our roles around, questioning our norms and mores. Now, this Jesus is dangerous. He's threatening the very foundation of our society. He's flipping things upside down.
He most certainly is. According to Jesus, the first becomes the last, the least becomes the greatest, the servant is the master. The Son of Man has not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many, he once said. And on that Thursday night, Jesus put his words into action, serving all of us, his servants, washing our feet.
This teaching it's dangerous. It could unhinge our entire society.
He was giving us an example of how to act towards one another. And later in the evening, he said just that. I give you a new commandment, he said, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another.
A new commandment. Now, this insurrectionist is changing and adding to our most sacred codes of law. This is nothing less than anarchy. What would happen if we all began to disregard the law and simply start loving one another? What sort of society would be built on that?
A new society, a new kind of church, the very kingdom of God, in fact.
I could charge you with contempt. Or was that you engaging your mouth before your mind again, Peter?
No, that was me engaging my faith, my mind, and my heart all at the same time.
It would please the court if you could please stop with your opinions and assertions and continue your testimony of the events that evening.
The celebration of the Passover was wonderful. As the evening went on, it became obvious why Jesus had so longed to share it with us. To gather at that table in a spirit of oneness, friendship, family, trust, to remember the ancient night when death had passed over, the new life was offered to the children of Israel, and then for Jesus to gather us together with himself in something truly mysterious, unifying, new.
Don't tell us that Jesus even tampered with the ancient rite of the Passover.
It seemed strange and out of place at the time, but during the meal, Jesus changed the traditional pattern. He took a piece of bread, broke it, and thanked his Father and passed it around. This bread is my body, he said, broken for you.
Your friend John has already testified to Jesus' strange assertions that he is the living bread of heaven.
After we had finished the meal, Jesus took one of the traditional cups of wine, but blessed it in a different manner and passed it around for all of us to drink. This is the new covenant in my blood, he said.
New covenant? He can't mean it. God's ancient covenant with Israel, sealed on Mount Sinai, is the glue that holds our entire society together. And he's suggesting a whole new one?
That evening, Jesus became our servant. He had given us to one another in a bond of love. And he was giving himself to us in bread and wine as a new sacrifice, a new sacrament that brings God and his grace close to us. No, not close to us, but into our midst, and even into our own bodies. Jesus gave us a new feast to look forward to, a promised and eternal feast, which will gather all of God's children into the house of the Lord forever. We didn't realize it at the time. We would come to understand after Jesus had sacrificed his body and shed his blood on the cross, after he returned to bear witness to God.
This court has heard enough. This witness is biased and dangerous and is dismissed. It is clear what Jesus is trying to do. Anarchy, insurrection. His plans were to turn our society on its ear. He meant to undermine our most cherished norms and our dearest mores. Ancient rituals meant nothing to him. Old covenants, the foundations of our very society, were meaningless to him. He meant to tear from the top to the very bottom of our very moral fiber. He was rightly considered an enemy of the state. Imagine a society based on love and servitude and unity. Oh, absurd. This court is in recess.